Could Obama use a natural disaster to claim a third term as president? Recently, there has been a lot of talk about an imminent disaster that could happen. 2 months ago, it was Yellowstone. And just after that, everybody was worried about Mount St. Helens. And then the big news was the epic hurricane season that we would see this summer. And now, all the attention is focused on the Cascadia subduction zone and the threat of a 9.0 earthquake that could affect millions of people along the West Coast. It's as though the government is cluing us in that a huge natural disaster is going to happen at any moment, and it could be anything, and we should be prepared. Why are they doing this? Obama and FEMA officials have spoken out now on several occasions. People need to be ready for a cataclysm, that they should have stored food, water, and other supplies and have an escape route. Obama isn't the only leader talking about an imminent event.
Friday afternoon, and since that time, now the measure has been virtually ignored by the mainstream media. Now, the order essentially gives the President of the United States absolute power over any and all American resources during both times of peace and national crisis. Now, this includes, but is not limited to, food and livestock, water, plants, energy, health resources, transportation, and construction materials, and gives the government the ability to, quote, control the general distribution of any material, including applicable services in the civilian market. Now, White House Press Secretary Jay Carney laughed off a question about the document at today's briefing. Let's take a look.
There's been some online commentary suggesting this gives the executive branch power to allocate energy, food, water in either peacetime or wartime. And there are some conservative blogs that are pushing the notion that this suggests the White House is preparing for a war with Iran. Can you explain what this executive order was?
Well, I cannot explain that reaction to it. I think it was a fairly standard and routine piece of business.
Now, not everybody's laughing about this executive order. In fact, some have suggested this would give the President of the United States the authority to declare basically martial law during times of peace. And to be sure, this is simply the latest string of actions taken by the administration that ignore the basic principles.
Will Obama declare martial law to stay in office if Donald Trump wins the election? If Donald Trump wins in November, which is only 3 months away, will Barack Obama leave office and hand over power in an orderly fashion? Normally, we would not even have to ask such a question, but these are not normal times. This week, Obama publicly stated that Trump, quote, is unfit to serve as president and that he is woefully unprepared to do this job, end quote. In addition, he told the press that Trump doesn't have the judgment, the temperament, the understanding to occupy the most powerful position in the world. If Obama really believes those things are true, would he really just stand aside and hand the keys to the White House to Trump? Never before have I heard a sitting president claim that one of the major party candidates could not function as president. But that is what Obama has just done. The following is an excerpt from a transcript of remarks made by Obama earlier this week that comes directly from the official White House website. I have highlighted certain phrases in bold text because I want you to truly consider the implications of what he is saying here. Quote, but there have been Republican presidents with whom I disagreed with, but I didn't have a doubt that they could function as president. I think I was right, and Mitt Romney and John McCain were wrong on certain policy issues, but I never thought that they couldn't do the job. And had they won, I would have been disappointed, but I would have said to all Americans that this is our president, and I know they're going to abide by certain norms and rules and common sense, will observe basic decency, will have enough knowledge about economic policy and foreign policy, and our constitutional traditions and rule of law that our government will work, and then will compete 4 years from now to try to win an election. But that's not the situation here. And that's not just my opinion, that's the opinion of many prominent Republicans. There has to come a point at which you say enough. Earlier today, I came across an outstanding article by Joseph Farah of WND, in which he summarized the claims that Obama was making against Trump. 1. He said Trump would not abide by norms and rules and common sense. 2. He questioned whether he would observe basic decency should he reach the Oval Office. 3. He said he would have been disappointed to lose the elections of 2008 and 2012, but never doubted whether his rivals in those elections, John McCain and Mitt Romney, could function as president or have the knowledge to make government work. That's not the situation here, he added. 4. He added Trump doesn't have the judgment, the temperament, the understanding to occupy the most powerful position in the world. 5. He said he was woefully unprepared to do this job. 6. Obama said Trump lacked knowledge about Europe, the Middle East, and other parts of Asia. This is some extremely strong language, and I truly wish one of the reporters at the press conference would have asked one incredibly important follow-up question. Will Barack Obama try to stay in office if Donald Trump wins the election? In this article, Joseph Farah raised the same issue. Quote, "If no one else will ask the question, I will. Mr. President, if Donald Trump wins the election to become the next president of the United States, will you willingly and peacefully leave office and cooperate fully with the transition of power the way of all your predecessors in the White House have done in the past?" It's a simple question that needs to be asked and answered, given Obama's highly inflammatory rhetoric over the last week. End quote. Like Farah, I believe that it is a fair question. If Barack Obama truly believes all of the things he said about Donald Trump, does he also believe that he has a responsibility to keep Donald Trump from taking office? Absent a major national emergency of some sort, this would be very difficult for Obama to do. But if there were some sort of enormous national crisis between now and next January, Barack Obama could potentially employ some of the extraordinary emergency powers that have been endowed on the office of the president over the past several decades. There is not a single statute, regulation, executive order, or presidential directive that contains all of the powers that a president would possess during a major national emergency. Rather, these powers have been layered on top of one another for a very long period of time, and they come from literally dozens of different laws, regulations, court decisions, executive orders, and presidential directives. One document that I would refer you to is the National Security Presidential Directive 51, which was put into effect during the Bush administration. It is all about national continuity policy, and it defines a catastrophic emergency as an incident, regardless of location, that results in extraordinary levels of mass casualties, damage, or disruptions severely affecting the United States population, infrastructure, environment, economy, or government functions. In such a scenario, the president could have almost unlimited power, and if he would wield enormously powerful executive orders, such as this one. If there was a big enough emergency, the president would potentially be able to declare martial law, suspend elections, and essentially become a dictator.
Executive order. According to this email from Conservative Action Alerts, Barack Obama has just signed another executive order. This time, he's giving new police powers to foreign police. You read that right. Obama's new Executive Order 13,524, amending Executive Order 12,425, grants the International Criminal Police Organization, Interpol, rights on American soil that place it beyond the reach of our own law enforcement agencies, such as the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI. This lays the groundwork for Interpol to do what the president cannot legally justify doing. Interpol, on instructions from the Obama regime, will now be able to carry out actions prohibited to our own law enforcement. Barack Obama is taking the United States down the path to martial law. We must stop him now. As Andrew C. McCarthy at the National Review wrote, "You just can't make up how brazen this crowd is." President Obama quietly signed an executive order that makes an international police force immune from the restraints of American law. He went on to report, Interpol is the shorthand for the International Criminal Police Organization. It was established in 1923 and operates in about 188 countries. By Executive Order 12,425, issued in 1983, President Reagan recognized Interpol as an international organization and gave it some of the privileges and immunities customarily extended to foreign diplomats. Interpol, however, is also an active law enforcement agency, so critical privileges and immunities, set forth in Section 2(c) of the International Organizations Immunities Act, were withheld. Specifically, Interpol's property and assets remain subject to search and seizure, and its archived records remain subject to public scrutiny under provisions like the Freedom of Information Act. Being constrained by the Fourth Amendment, FOIA, and other limitations of the Constitution and federal law that protect the liberty and privacy of Americans is what prevents law enforcement and its controlling government authority from becoming tyrannical. On Wednesday, however, for no apparent reason, President Obama issued an executive order removing the Reagan limitations. That is, Interpol's property and assets are no longer subject to search and confiscation, and its archives are now considered inviolable. This international police force, whose the United States headquarters is in the Justice Department in Washington, will be unrestrained by the United States Constitution and American law while it operates in the United States and affects both Americans and American interests outside the United States. As Steve Shepard and Clyde Middleton's analysis of Obama's new executive order concludes, inviolable archives means Interpol records are beyond the United States Citizens' Freedom of Information Act requests and from American legal or investigative discovery unless such immunity be expressly waived. Property and assets being immune from search and confiscation means precisely that, wherever they may be in the United States. This could conceivably include human assets, Americans arrested on our soil by Interpol officers. Still think Obama isn't putting all of the pieces together to implement martial law. Wake up. Congress has to act now to stop him, which means we have to force Congress.
Obama isn't going to declare martial law and establish a provisional government at some point from now until January 19, 2017. Then why did Mitch McConnell fast-track a bill back in January that handed Obama absolute authority of the U.S. military to declare martial law anywhere in the world, including the United States? That's correct. Never before in history has a president of the U.S. had such power over the military to declare martial law for any reason, at any point in time, anywhere in the world. Martial law changes everything, even constitutional rights. You no longer have them. They're gone, including the 22nd Amendment, which limits Obama to 2 terms. He no longer would be forced to leave office if martial law was declared. Several individuals have spoken out publicly about the potential for an Obama 3rd term with the eruption of a major calamity in the United States. Dr. Ben Carson warned that Obama could cancel the election under widespread anarchy, while former Congressman Allen West declared that Obama was taking several actions to ensure that he will have a 3rd term.